Hello and welcome. This is ID Cooling IS-77-XT, a CPU cooler that is 77 millimeters in height. The definition of a low-profile heatsink is 65 millimeters. Therefore, this is not a low-profile cooler. Still, there are cases where they cannot take tower coolers, but have more space for heatsinks that are taller than 65 millimeters. I suppose this cooler is for such cases. By the way, this was not a cheap cooler, costing 76 Canadian dollars, tax included. This costs around 50% more than ID Cooling 65mm heatsinks. Still, if it performs better than those 65mm heatsinks, I suppose it will have its places. I say that because, quite frankly, the amount of thermal mass it has seems identical to their 65mm heatsink, which you are looking at right now. Side by side, they are almost identical in design. IS-77 has its fan underneath its fins. That's the only major difference. This design does move the heat dissipation point away from the CPU socket by about 25 millimeters. Will that make a large difference? We will see soon enough. As with ID Cooling heatsinks, the quality is top-notch. The bottom is almost mirror finish. The paint job is good and there is no defect. The packaging was very good as well. Overall, aside from its rather high price, I have no complaints, so far anyway. Those who have tried a fair number of heatsinks will probably agree with me that ID Cooling has the best mounting mechanism. They've improved that aspect even more with their recent products. They have unified the mounting standoffs, and now you don't need to use specific ones. It benefits both them and us, since there are now less parts to worry about, and they need to make less parts also. A win for everyone. As for noise level, I will leave the final judgment to you. I have my sound meter here and will leave it on the screen throughout the video. Anyway, at idle, it's just as you'd expect. It's quiet enough. I am testing the heatsink with Intel Core Ultra 265K. This is the same platform I've used to test all of heatsinks in recent times. The artificial CPU load is created by Blender CPU Render by using a scene I've created. The test lasted for about 10 minutes. This testing method has been identical for all heatsinks I've tested, and therefore, I will include test results for different heatsinks in the end, if applicable. It looks like the system thinks it can turbo boost infinitely at 200 watts. No 65mm heatsink I've tested would go this high, meaning that IS-77 has already proven that it is objectively superior than any of 65mm heatsinks I've tested. I will need to tone it down to 125 watts to see its temperature. I also need to do that in order to compare with other low-profile coolers. Well, this is interesting. When testing the heatsink at 125 watts TDP, it performs identical to other 65mm heatsinks. This means that IS-77 has a similar thermal mass compared to others. Then it begs a question. Why was it able to boost infinitely? I may have an answer to that. Do you remember me talking about heat dissipation point being 25 millimeters away from the CPU socket compared to other low-profile heatsinks? I believe that is the reason. Because the hottest part of the heatsink is adequately away from the CPU socket, the system thinks it can push harder. In other words, if this test was done in a case with restricted airflow, this heatsink would have performed similarly to other heatsink of 65 millimeters height. In the end, IS-77 is comparable to other heatsinks of 65mm in height. I believe it can perform better in certain situations where there is high airflow. Otherwise, this heatsink is rather unremarkable while being too tall to fit in the majority of small form factor cases. There are other options in this field, and far cheaper ones at that. Therefore, I cannot recommend this heatsink. Thank you for watching.